Alright guys, so in this video we're going to talk about the IUPAC names of compound. Now this area is very challenging for most students because it deals with the naming of compound, and for some or most people these are the areas they find challenging in chemistry. But you see, it's very easy. It's very easy. IUPAC names, naming compounds, whatever, organic or inorganic, they are dynamics. Because we have two types of compounds in chemistry. We have the organic compounds, the one that has to do with those ones are exclusive to organic chemistry. Then we have the inorganic compounds. But our focal point for this video will be the inorganic compounds. We're going to learn the dynamics on how to name them. Firstly, what is the full meaning of IUPAC? That's our first port of call for this video. The full meaning of IUPAC, I'll give it to you right now. It stands for International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. So that is the full meaning of IUPAC, and it's important to take that down in case you forget, or you can make a screenshot of it. Now, let's get to work. Let's see how we can name compounds. I'll start with something very basic. Firstly, you have to understand what compounds are. What is the definition for a compound? That is because for some chemistry exams, external exams in chemistry, you may be asked the definitions of some keywords. Sometimes you may be asked to define compounds. You may be asked to define elements. Let's examine two things before we begin the actual thing which we're here for. One of the term we have to be able to know how to define is elements. And the other one we have to be able to know how to define is compound. Firstly, what is an element? An element refers to a substance which cannot be split into simpler units by an ordinary chemical process. So it means for an element, we can split an element further. It is just like that. And by the way, this is the part 1 of this video. Like you can see here, this is the part 1 because I'm going to make this a 2 or a 3-part series. So this is the first part. So watch out for the next 2 parts of this particular series. Now, I haven't told you what an element is. Now, you know examples of elements. Examples of elements, we have potassium is an element, calcium is an element, nitrogen an element. These are examples we have. A lot of them, we have scandium, we have titanium, we have sodium. A lot of them, these are elements. So it means you can't split them further. They're just simple like that. But compound, what exactly is a compound? A compound talks about a chemical combination of 2 or more elements. So it means to form a compound, we must have at least 2 elements or more. For example, if I show you an example like this, CO2, this is a compound. Why? Because I have carbon being element 1, and I have oxygen being element 2 here. Another example of a compound, I can give you CaCO3. Here is a compound. Why? Because we have at least 2 elements here. Insofar that substance is made of at least 2 elements, it cannot be called an element. It becomes a compound. So for our first example, we saw CO2. That's, those are 2 elements, the carbon and oxygen. Then the second example, we have 3 elements, calcium being one of them. Then we have carbon, then we have oxygen. So these are examples of compounds. Now, having told you that, let's see how we can name compounds. And these are inorganic compounds, by the way. Now, very first example, let me start by giving you some basics. For example, CO2, we have CO2. Let me give you CO. Let me give you NO2. Let me give you NO. Let me give you N2O. Let me give you H2O. Let me give you SO2. Let me give you SO3. Now, I'm beginning with something very, very fundamental, so it won't be too sophisticated for you. All these examples I brought out, they are all two element compounds. So it means we're going to start with elements. We're going to start with compounds rather with two elements. For example, carbon. How can we name carbon? How can we name CO2? They're just two elements here, carbon and oxygen. Now, here's the trick. If you see a 2 in front of it, like beside oxygen or whatever it is, you have to multiply that 2 by 2. But if there is nothing attached to it, then you take it as 1. Then you multiply that 1 by 2. I hope you get it. Now, to name this compound, the first one, it becomes carbon. Alright? So to name compound, of course, we mention the first element, then you move on to the other, carbon, 4. And when you're writing your 4 should be in Roman figure. Carbon 4 oxide. That becomes it. Why? Because we got 4 from 2 times 2. And I believe you know how you can name the other one. This becomes carbon first will be mentioned. Carbon. Then you write 2 oxide. Carbon 2 oxide. So you see, as I will name it, it's very, very easy. But in some regions of the world, maybe like America or something like that, this can be, like carbon 4 oxide can be rewritten as carbon dioxide. Then carbon 2 oxide can be rewritten as carbon monoxide. You see that now. So whichever way you write it, it's good. But if you want to show the Roman figure, here's where the calculation comes in. So this becomes carbon 4 oxide, or you can say carbon dioxide. This becomes carbon 2 oxide, or you can say carbon monoxide. That is it. So how can we name this? You see, we have a 2 here, like we're going to do 2 times 2, that gives us 4. This becomes nitrogen 4 oxide. Nitrogen 4 oxide. See that now. Then this becomes nitrogen. I believe you can guess that now. 2 oxide. Alright. Then for number 5 and 6, the dynamics is slightly different. So be careful. But this number 5, we have the 2 attached to the first element, unlike the previous ones where the 2 was attached to the last element being oxygen. But in this case, the 2 is attached to nitrogen. So we're going to use this 2 to multiply, and not that we do. In this case, we're going to use something called there's a special name which we give them. For example, if we want to say 1, we use mono. If we want to say 2, we use di. If we want to say 3, we use tri. Then, if we want to say 4, we use tetra. If we want to say 5, we use penta. If we want to say 6, we use hexa. Please take this down. They're very important. You need them. You need them not just only in chemistry. You also need them in mathematics and in physics. If we want to say 7, we use hepta. If we want to say 8, we use octa. If we want to say 9, we use nona. Then if we want to say 10, we use deca. We're going to talk about this again. So make sure you commit them to memory. Now, in this case, we have the 2 attached to nitrogen. 2 is attached to nitrogen. So we're going to use di. So because 2 stands for di. So this becomes dinitrogen. Dinitrogen. As for the first part now. Now to talk about oxygen, if you look at oxygen, there's no 2 attached to oxygen. So we call that 1. Since there's nothing there, it becomes 1. So this becomes dinitrogen 1 oxide. I believe you got that now. So this compound is water. Most people only call it water, but they don't know the IUPAC name for water. If I ask you what's H2, you tell me water. That's the common name, you're right. So that's not the IUPAC name. Water has an IUPAC name. So if you want to name water, it becomes dihydrogen, like we did for the first. Dihydrogen. Say that now. One oxide. Dihydrogen one oxide. Then SO2 and SO3, they're similar to the way we named the first four. See the first four? CO2, CO, NO2, and NO. We're going to name this now. SO2 here, you see there's a 2 attached here, becomes 4, right? Because 2 multiplied by itself gives 4. So we have sulfur. You see that now? Sulfur, 4 oxide. And then for the last, there's a 3 here, and we're going to multiply that 3 by 2, and that gives 6. So this becomes sulfur, 6 oxide. So you see, it's very easy. But these are two element compounds, so these ones are very, very basic. So we haven't gone into the difficult ones yet. So I'll do that on a part 2 because I don't want this video to be too long. For the part 2, we'll talk about elements with compounds rather with 3 elements. So see you on the next one. I believe you learned something. Share the video with your friends who will find it helpful as well. Then leave a comment, like the video, and of course subscribe. So whenever I upload a new video, you will be notified. Alright, see you on the next one, part 2 of naming inorganic compounds.